Hello, my friends. Welcome. My name is Joe. This is the Joe Martino Show. And today we're going to talk about something that could get me in trouble. We're going to talk about maybe there's a new way or a better way for us to talk about politics and the disagreements that we have in them. Maybe there's a better way for us to have passionate conversations. Let's kick it off. This is the Joe Martino Show.
You're listening to the Joe Martino Show, a podcast dealing with all things emotional, relational, and human nature. Joe is a licensed counselor in the state of Michigan, specializing in relationship therapy. He is also the author of the book, The Emotionally Secure Couple. All advice offered in this episode is offered for entertainment and educational purposes only. Enjoy the show.
All right. Hello. Welcome back wherever you're at. I hope that today is going well for you. I'm going to talk about something today that I think is going to get me in trouble. And I've debated doing this conversation with you. And I kind of laugh at the idea that it's going to get me in trouble because it's actually about unity, which is something of a hijacked word today. I get it. I get that there are words that are hijacked in modern society. We're just going to jump right into the deep end today. And we have to admit that there are words that are hijacked in society. And I never see this more than when we're having hard conversations about things that are going on in society. And I think it starts with something that has a truth to it, but we tend to overtake it. We tend to take too much of it. And so I want to talk about the truth of what we're looking at. And I want us to stop and ask ourselves, what does that mean for unity? What does that mean for us when we are talking about things that bring unity to people or work for unity to the people around us? Okay, so I want to start with this idea that who you see of me isn't the same me that everyone gets. There's truth to this. My wife, Erica, gets a me that most people don't get. My children get a me that most people don't get because that's in my home. It's in my house. It is all the time with me, right? They spend the most time with me. And they get a me that a lot of you don't get. My friends get a me that a lot of you don't get. In fact, for some of my listeners, the only me you get is this podcast or video if you're watching that. And you construct a me that may or may not exist. And so you'll see this a lot in social media. In my job, I talk to a lot of people who talk about it. You know, the me that people get isn't the me that a lot of other people get. And I get that, and I understand the thought behind it. And the reality here is that there is wisdom in this idea. We give our different versions of ourselves to different people because we have different levels of trust for different people. And that is wisdom. There is wisdom in that. And there is also dangers in it. And that's kind of what I want to talk about today. So what are some of the dangers in this idea that who you see with me is different, depending on who you are? There's wisdom to it and there's dangers. And then what runs that out for us into really dangerous territory where we start thinking about us and thems. So what's a danger in this? Well, one of the dangers would be that as we engage the us and them, or the you get different versions of me, we could be fake. And this is something that I hear people talk about, like, well, if people get different versions of me, maybe they're fake. Maybe I'm fake. Maybe, but there is wisdom in you don't need to know all the vulnerable things in my life. You don't need to know all of the things going on in my life like maybe my wife does, because her and I have a different relationship. My friends, they don't need to know all the struggles in my life. They need to know some of them, and there are some friends that probably need to know all of them. And so there is wisdom there because I shouldn't trust everybody with all the insides of me, right? All the things going on inside of me. I shouldn't necessarily just trust everybody with that, and that's wisdom. You shouldn't be just divulging every aspect of your life to everyone you meet. And we've met people like this, right? You walk up, and in our society, there is this weird but commonly accepted thing where we say, hi, how are you? And we don't actually mean, how are you? In fact, so much so that if somebody just says, okay, here's the routine that we have. But here's how this works. Person A says, hi. Person B says, hi, how are you? Person B says, oh, I'm good, thanks. And they keep on moving. If the response is, I'm okay, it will almost always cause an immediate cognitive dissonance pause of just okay. And we feel like we're really wading into the deep parts of a relationship by doing that. We're really not. And so we have this routine that is set up like, oh, hey, how are you doing? Oh, I'm okay, or I'm good. And there is some level of wisdom to that, and hopefully you're hearing that theme, because there are people that when you say, hey, how are you? And they just start talking and talking and talking, you're thinking, I don't need all of these details. I don't know you well enough to walk this with you. Or they end up telling people that they shouldn't have, and their story becomes gossip for the town, the community that they're in. And that is because they lacked wisdom. So we have wisdom there that we want to follow. And I think that's good. Arthur Brooks, a renowned researcher, talks about one of the saddest things in his research is how many people are not going to spend the holidays with family members because they disagree over politics. And here's the thing. This is what I mean by it becomes an us versus them thing. Everybody cloaks their side in morals, right? So my friends on the left, they're cloaking their position of, you know what, if you support Trump, don't be in my life on morals. And my friends on the right are, hey, if you don't support Trump, or if you support Biden, supported Kamala, whatever, you don't belong in my life. You can't be in my life. This isn't me about politics. This is an issue of morality. And I want to just say, get your head out of your butt. Get your head out of your butt. Politicians are going to come and go. There's going to be policies that we disagree with on both sides. If you agree with all the policies on just one side of the political aisle, there's a danger there that you're caught in that us versus them. And here's the thing that I want to spend the rest of the podcast talking about. When we can take them and lump them into an immoral group, we can now dehumanize them. So because you disagree with me, this isn't an issue of a political disagreement. This is morals. There is a payoff to you because now you get to be angry. And you know, we've talked about being addicted to anger and how it's killing us. If you want to re-listen to that episode, it was actually a two-part episode, or a two-part series, 143 and episode 144, talked about how our anger is killing us. And part of that is when you're angry, especially when you feel like you have a moral reason to be angry at that evil person over there that supports Trump or doesn't support Trump, that supports Biden or doesn't support Biden. When you can get to that place, your brain gives you a cognitive reward. And if you listen to episode 145, you'll remember that we talked about once we're there, we are in danger of having CRID disease, which is cranial rectum inversion disorder. It's a very serious disease that afflicts a lot of us today at many different times. And so what happens is when you look at people and you're like, I can't believe that you believe this, is okay, isn't okay, what's wrong with you? We've now dehumanized them. And I know that it's a logical fallacy to bring in the Nazis and Hitler, but that is what they did to their enemies. In truth, that is what mankind has done throughout history. But if you ever wonder how in the world could a country exterminate so many people, that's how you do it. You dehumanize them. You make them less than human. You make them the bad people over there. And when we can make them the bad people over there, those bad people over there that don't agree with me, and because they don't agree with me, they lack the moral high ground that I have, we can dehumanize them. And then we can treat them poorly. We can lose kindness. And I see this, we can step out of the national conversation for a minute, although it is certainly in that conversation regularly. It is there all the time. But we can step out of that. And I see this with people who are co-parenting. Well, I'm just telling you what I want is what's best for the kids. Not so subtly implying that what he or she wants, the other person wants, is not what's best for the kids. And how can you be so morally inept? Now, this is difficult because a lot of what we're talking about are moral issues. A lot of what we're talking about, there is morality to it. But as a society, we have to recognize that there is space between our morals to be different without the other person being bad. There are people that we should know and love who we disagree with morally. And that doesn't mean that we should dehumanize them. And I would imagine that somebody's going to say to me or write me and say, like, what about people who are doing bad things or immoral things under policy? Yeah, here's what I'm saying. You can call out the idea that, hey, I think this policy is immoral. You can call out the idea that I think this policy is immoral or this position is immoral. And I have those positions. Right now on my desk is a manual for a local parachurch organization. For you who are not involved in churches, there's these churches. So churches are what you would know, right? First Baptist Church, First Community Church, Seventh Presbyterian Church, whatever. You would know those churches. Of course, now they have different names like the Well and the Deep and the Impactful and those types of things. Actually, I'm not making fun of that too much. My church's name is Impact, and I love my church. But, right, so there's that organization, and then a parachurch organization is a adjacent organization that does church things. And there's one in our town that I think there's a lot of unbiblical things in it. I think that there's a lot of, I don't know if I would say they're immoral. I'd have to think about that. You can notice I started to walk this script without writing it out. I would say that they're unbiblical, which to a Christian is on par with immoral. But you have to be careful how you approach that conversation. What I don't want to do is go into that little training manual and be like, aha, this right here proves that they're less than human. And that's the biggest problem that I see with our current conversations, is that we're saying that the people who disagree with us, we think what they're doing is immoral and therefore they're immoral. And here's the problem with it. I doubt that there is a human being on this earth that if we went full YouTube on your life, cameras everywhere, we just followed you around and watched how you lived your life, I doubt that we wouldn't find some immorality in your life. I doubt that we wouldn't find something in your life that you would say you're doing is wrong, and you're still doing it. And you have to take the whole person, right? And that's what you want for you. And we can draw lines like, yes, if we're actually talking about somebody advocating for killing someone, we need to draw that line. But again, taking it back to the national conversation, here's the thing that I don't understand about politics. When a Republican does it, my Democrat friends lose their mind. When a Democrat does it, my Republican friends lose their minds. And the it isn't different. It's just the party doing it. Because it's an us versus them. And that will kill us. Right? That will literally kill us as a human, as a society. Because here's what happens. We're going to get one president come in. He's going to make all these executive orders to do all these things. And then when his party loses in 4 years or 8 years or maybe 12, the next party is going to come in and make executive orders to undo all of those things and start different policies. And we're sitting back and cheering rather than trying to actually make grassroots change in our communities by purposely building relationships with people we don't agree with. And I can honestly say that this is something that I've done. I have relationships with people I don't agree with. Just this week, I had a conversation with a guy about food, and it was a spirited conversation. We disagree, but he's not somebody that I'm like, that's it, you're not in my life anymore. Yeah, but Joe, that's not about something as big as immigration. I agree. And that's why I say, like, look, if you think that deporting people here is wrong, is morally wrong, I'm okay with that. You're entitled to that belief. My problem is, did you have that same energy when somebody in your political party was doing it? I'm okay if you think that the Democrats had too much power, that's fine. You're entitled to that opinion. But are you bothered by how much power the Republicans are trying to have? If you were bothered when the Democrats silenced their enemies and targeted them, right, use the IRS to target them, I'm okay with that. But did you have that same energy when the Republicans were doing it to their enemies? Does it not bother you that we use the word enemies to describe people we disagree with politically? That bothers me because it's hurting us, and unity is the way forward to health and healing. And unity starts with you building relationships with people that you don't agree with, and that you recognize there's probably not a lot of chance that you're going to logic them into agreeing with you. That's what creates unity. Creating a relationship and saying, hey, you and I disagree on this and this. In fact, I had men's group this morning and I was talking and I said, look, this one guy and I, we disagree on about 40% of stuff. And we're still good friends. It's good. And we can disagree and we will argue. And sometimes he'll raise his voice at me and I'll raise my voice at him. But it's not an us versus them. It's not a me versus them. We have to look at how we disagree. Keep disagreeing. Keep disagreeing. If you think a policy that this current administration is doing is wrong and you want to go and you want to march to voice that protest, do it. But then don't vilify people who turn around on the other side of the party and march against something that you agree with. Recognize that part of our system is adversarial. And that doesn't mean that we get to call each other names. That means that we disagree with each other and that we're coming at how to solve the problem differently. And I get it. I don't know if you watch our governing bodies like the senators or the Congress people do their confirmation hearings. The way they talk to those people is ridiculous. The way they talk to the candidates is absolutely ridiculous. Dear senators, you're not that important. You're just not. But here's the thing that I want to say to you, the listener, because I doubt any senators are listening to this. If you are, I'd love to know. Send me an email and maybe we can get you on the show. But to the people that are listening that aren't senators or Congress people, I want to say this. You are the key to our country becoming more united and less divided. You are the key to our country becoming more united and less divided by finding people that you disagree with, not demanding that they tell you everything you believe is right, not demanding that they agree with you on everything, but recognizing that you disagree and you can find relationship in that disagreement. You can find relationship and health and healing in those disagreements, not in spite of them, but because of them. Because when we stop and listen to those we disagree with, we learn things. And sometimes I learn things and they change my opinion. Sometimes I learn things and they don't change my opinion. They just help me better understand how my friends came to those conclusions. So while we don't give everyone the same version of us, here is one version of us that I would like for us to give to everyone. And that is the version of us that says, hey, I might not agree with you, but I want to build relationship with you. And I want to acknowledge that we're going to disagree. And I want to acknowledge that we might not agree about everything. But I'm going to build a relationship with you because I think there are things I can learn from you, and I hope there are things you can learn from me. That's it. That's the whole idea. Democrats and Republicans can be good friends. You both can be good friends with us, the libertarians. And libertarians, we can be good friends with independents. All right. That's my thoughts for today. I hope that you like this episode. I hope that it at least causes some of you to stop and think and ponder, how are we approaching the disagreements in our world today? Thanks so much for listening. We'll catch you next week.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, please share with a friend. And hey, give us that rating in your podcast store. Until next time, change possible.